Nothing here like getting up here a bit and a good day today to get a crack at everything of what we're going to be seeing out here, and constantly getting the risk of him being thrown off of the cliff out here and into the lake, or whatever this is. Welcome back to more of Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen. Before we do anything else, Fishing Girl's younger brother, you want to talk to this guy. Why? Because he gives you this. The Super Rod. There's a rod that we haven't gotten, and that's between the old and the Super Rod. But we'll be talking about that one in a little bit. If you catch a big Magikarp with that rod, I want to see it. As much as I love to fish, I also love seeing gigantic Magikarp. I guess maybe we could take that into consideration. I want to use this real quick. And right here, now that we have acquired the Super Rod, we now have access to 4 new Pokemon that can be accessible with this. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to talking about these Pokemon. Except for maybe one, but we'll get into that. In fact, we'll talk about it. Uh-oh. There we go. We're going to talk about those 4 Pokemon right here, right now. First up, Krabby! My only advice for this is, don't use this. Why? Because I like certain other Pokemon that would be great beneficial for it being a physical offensive Pokemon. Crabhammer is not a physically offensive move yet. It is counted as special in this game, and its special offense sucks. That is not to say that it's useless. I'm just saying that it's 1 generation too early. When it evolves into Kingler at level 26, it once again becomes a pretty hard-hitting Pokemon, and even though that Crabhammer will do you pretty much no good in this generation, it makes it up for having some pretty decent and normal-type moves that it can learn to level up. The only real thing that you want to consider asking yourself is, do you want to have a good physical offensive Water-type move, but it's not great until the next generation, or do you want to skip on this for something better? I recommend the latter. Especially since in that you're probably going to catch wind of the fact and that you're going to be raising this thing in probably some of the crappiest sort of ways that I can think of, and you're not exactly going to be getting much good mileage out of that. So as it stands, Krabby and Kingler are great, just 1 generation too early. Next up, Horsey. Now this is a Pokemon that I would recommend a little bit more. Why? Because it has some pretty good usage for it later on. Swift Swim with it is great, and if I remember correctly, doesn't have Poison Point? Well, you'll find out in the bio in a little bit, and if I happen to be incorrect about something, you'll see it pretty much right there. But in all seriousness, Horsey is actually meant to be a pretty balanced and down Water type. And by the time it evolves into Seadra at level 32, it becomes a very nice set of Pokemon when used correctly. The one big thing that I want to quickly say is that you do not have access to the King's Rock, nor will you be able to trade with it until later on. But that's okay, because even without it, it's still pretty viable. I recommend this sort of Pokemon not just because that it's a better choice than that of Krabby, but it's also because that you might want to consider holding on to a Pokemon like this. You can never tell when a decently special offensive Water type Pokemon that kind of lives up to the bulk that most Water types have, but still, you could do worse. Next up, only found in FireRed, Psyduck. This is a weird Pokemon, and not just in the fact that it gives people headaches all the time. I'm saying it because up until Generation 5, it has a signature ability of Cloud 9. This is the second time that we're seeing something like this in the game. This pretty much gets around all weather effects. This is a really nice choice if you plan on using this and to counter against anyone that's pretty much a weather user. But that being said, okay, I'm just gonna come out and say this. As much as I like Psyduck, especially from the anime, here in the games, it's generic. I say this because even after it evolves into Golduck at level 33, both of its abilities are interesting, and you won't be seeing much of any good weather usage throughout the game. But that's not to say that it's bad, it's just awkward. So to put it in a summary, your options are, do you want to use this to prevent explosions, or do you want to prevent weather effects? I'd say pick your poison, but I guess if you really want to be good on this, I recommend probably awkwardly damp more so than Cloud 9. Mostly because in that you won't be seeing much of weather effects throughout the entirety of the game. So, preventing explosions might actually prove to be nice. Found only in LeafGreen though, is actually a Pokemon that I think got the better choice of it all. Slowpoke. Wait no more if you're looking for another good Psychic type and if you didn't bother raising an Abra. In fact, I consider this to be much better than that of the Abra. Well, I guess Abra and Drowsy in a way, but in terms of offense and special offense, this one kind of falls flat in a few locations. Unlike it with Abra, Slowpoke actually has some pretty decent attack stats, but the problem that I have with it is it won't see its great potential up until level 37 when it evolves into Slowbro. So, yeah. However, by the time when it evolves into Slowbro, this is when it really starts to shine here through for being a pretty nice special offensive user and can take a lot of good physical hits. Unlike, say, Alakazam. And of course, true to their namesake, these things are slow as F. I'm not saying that it's bad. In fact, having it being slow may not always be a bad thing. In fact, I've actually considered using one here on my team just to show how decent it could be. But even if you don't plan on using this, I actually would recommend that you catch it and level it up to a Slowbro. Even though that it's gonna take a fortnight to get there if you don't have a lot of patience, but there is something that is coming up pretty soon that you might want to consider catching if you want to use a Slowbro. Well, sort of. But I recommend that even if you don't want it, and I was kind of saving it until now, having a Golduck or Slowbro on your team, depending on the game you're playing, there is an in-game trade that you may want to consider and taking in part of. And apparently he's calling for Satan and levels it up. Oh, the irony. But then again, Peter does kind of consider the Pokemon games to be the devils. Even though that some of that just gotten dealt with as it is. And hey, speaking of a rain user, we'll be talking more about you later. Uh-oh. Oh, come on! Well, and calls for this. In fact, if I recall correctly, I think it affects on both sides as well. But I really don't want to stick around to find out. Yes, yes, water my shroom. And he goes. Okay. Here we go. And I actually want to make a quick correction on something. Horsey does not have poison points, that I said in the previous episode. So, whoops! Okay. But I guess that Rain Dance does kind of help out with that water headed type move as it is, since it also boosts the power of water type moves while it's in rain. And doubling its speed in the rain is no joke. Oh, too bad, I just messed up. Yes, yes, yes. Keep telling yourself that. We have a patch of grass that's right up here, which means on Route 13, we have only a lone new Pokemon that I would recommend that you catch. Not just in the for. Oh my god, you have 5 Pokemon. What am I doing? But because it has some good hit using that you'll be seeing in the after game. Sort of. And that Pokemon is Ditto. If you want to use this, you're using it for breeding. It's not to say that it's bad, it's just strange. Its only movement that it knows by default is Transform. This copies the Pokemon in its appearance, its moveset, its ability, practically everything. The trade-off for this is that it will not have a full set of PP for its entire moveset that it gains. Plus, you're also leaving yourself vulnerable if you plan on transforming, which you'll be doing either way. It's unfortunately slower than most Pokemon, but if you do plan on catching one that has some pretty good IV in terms of speed, then it might not be a bad thing. Just so you all be aware, you will be facing up against a Pokemon that can and will have moves, and that it will be effective against you if you transform into that said Pokemon. And it's going to be quite the challenge to get around it. I guess if you want to be... Dragon Breath? Wow, we'll be talking about you in a little bit. I guess if you truly wanted to make... Why did I do that? Damn it! Wrong move! Ah! I can fix that later. Well, anyway, if you plan on using this, Limber's okay. It just prevents paralysis. But I only ever suggest that you use this in a way that you won't have to worry too much about it, as you won't be dealing with it much useful with that in the particular future. So as it stands, Ditto's great for breeding. Could be good as a fake out or a potential scapegoat. Use it for breeding only. So I accidentally got rid of Dig in place of Dragon Breath, which was not a good thing, as I actually didn't want to hold on to that move for something a little bit later. So, whoops! And I'll see if I can try to at least make something work out of this. Oh, I lost. Alright. So we can't go up there, but we do have a bit of a maze to deal with. In fact, while I'm kind of going through this, I remember back when I first started playing this game back in 2004, 2005, I always had issues with getting around in this area, and I don't know why. I think it was because that I always had to like to try to work my way around for what we have to go through in this particular route to get to Fuchsia City pretty quickly. Yeah, it wasn't exactly well thought out. There we go. So Dragon Breath! I was kind of talking about this from before, but our very first essence of a Dragon type move. Even though that Onix is kind of an odd choice and to have this and learn it, This is not a bad hunter move, and even has a chance of dealing a paralysis, like you probably saw when I battled against that Pikachu. And would you stop now? Alright. Yeah! I think one of these trainers out here is a trainer of interest. Got a peepee up right there. I just don't remember for which ones, though. How are none of your Pokemon evolved? Like, okay, you have a Pidgey. Why is it not a Pidgeotto? Okay. You want me to burn you to bits? I'll burn you to bits. I warned you! I warned you! But seriously though, why are some of your Pokemon not fully evolved yet? See, that's the thing that I haven't with Pokemon games back in the day. Many of the NPCs in the game, they don't have fully evolved Pokemon, except for not only either late in the game, or you have to do it yourself. I don't know why they did this, but it doesn't make sense! Oh, so now you decide to have a Pokemon that's and it's in a mid-level of evolution. I'm sorry. And we'll go for the Dragon Breath on you. Well, thank you. Alright. So right up here is for where that grassy patch is at, if you want to go after a Ditto. And unfortunately, you're not going to get much mileage out of that. Oh. What you looking at? I'm not looking at anyone. You're the one that's looking at me. Okay, look at the sprite. If you look at him for where he's sitting, I know that's supposed to be the support on the back, but I remember back when he used to play this game a lot, I always thought that part that's sticking up from right there on the sprite is just him on a foot with a big hand. Can I kind of do something like this? Yeah, I don't know why. In fact, it's been like that for something like that for years, up until like maybe a few years ago, from when I was rewatching it, my old FireRed Let's Play that I did back in the day. All right. Uh-oh. Yep. That hurts. There we go. Yeah, majority of these trainers that we're seeing out here, they're not all required. But I am going to try to at least show the ones that are required. And then we'll kind of see how things will kind of progress on from there. There it goes. Gang, strip gears. You might want to get those checked out. Alright. Do not look at me. My Pokemon should be ready for battle. Well, screw you too. Jeez, what is it with some of these NPCs that are having more than 3 Pokemon and just won't shut up about it? Now that was a beautiful critical hit. Parasites are level 32. I'll take that. You got a Spearow right there. Inferno's dangerously close to evolving, which is great. And again, why are some of these non-Pokemon not involved? See, that's the thing. I said this before, but it's just so annoying. You either have to wait for late in the game to find fully evolved Pokemon from NPCs, or you gotta do them yourself. Like, I'm glad they changed some of that in later games. It's just been very consistent with some of these past games. Not ready yet. Yeah. It's called not fully evolving some of your Pokemon. Ah, come on! And yes, I have a Pokemon that can fly. Stop it! Thank you! Maybe you kind of deserve that. Alright. Alright. Bit of a new one. I have caught this off screen to help out with my Pokédex because there really is something that you want to get once you have 50 Pokemon. It'll make sense to you guys later. Uh-oh. Sure. If I did not just made me realize, the flames that we saw from Dragon Breath are upside down flames that are from Flamethrower. Pretty cool. Yes, yes, yes. You're gonna be very scared by the time when Wilma knows Rock Slide. She may not be ready to evolve, and not until the after game. But when she does, and it probably won't happen, you're gonna get it bad. Yeah, we got some long routes that we have to deal with. Shoot down in flames. Was there... Okay, there was nothing over here. So I came all this way for nothing. Alright. I want to be careful, though, because we will see some trainers along the way over here. In fact, you're probably one of them. A lot of these trainers are not required. But I know that there will be a handful that are required along the way. And, oh, God. Uh-oh. Oh. What do you mean I can't escape? You little prick. You asked for this! At least in that gave Inferno the level up that he needed. Yeah, I know for a fact that I think. Okay, no, never mind. You guys are not required. I will be taking care of these guys off screen. And then we'll carry on our way. Phew. Alright, now I believe it's through right here? I believe it is? Yeah. If you have 50 Pokemon registered, you get the experience share. This basically makes you share some of your experience and that you're earned in battle with another. But that's not going to matter much from there. And welcome everybody to Fuchsia City, our next destination. Let's see here. Alright. Now we can finally calm the F down. So let's kind of look around a little bit at the place. So far as our warden's home. How will he feel at home? He will free? He hoy, no, he hey. Yeah, he's a little bit on the, muffle side. This guy! The Vision Girl's older brother. And now he gives us our final ride, the good ride. A crummy old ride could only catch a Magikarp, yes. But with a good ride, you can catch a much better Pokemon. He's half right on this one. In fact, since we have a little bit of a pond right over here, now that we have access into the good ride. But yeah, why don't we fish for a little while? We have 2 new Pokemon here that can be accessible now that we've gotten ourselves the good rod. And one of them might actually be worth your time. And what the heck are you doing here? Okay, I did not expect this. Okay, I kind of did a little bit, but I guess we got no other time to talk about this anyway. First up, Poliwag! Yeah, Poliwag, yeah, Poliwag! This is a very interesting water type. I consider this to be one of the more balanced out water type Pokemon, but in some of the more awkward ways. I'm saying this mostly because that it is armed with, I guess, a decent water type moves. But I'm only ever saying this because that it's going to be a little while until it reaches true potential. By the time it evolves into Poliwhirl at level 25, which actually won't be that far into getting if you plan on catching it here and now, it becomes a rather decently bulky water type. In fact, it will know his Psychic, it'll know Confusion, it knows Hypnosis. This one actually makes it kind of decent when dealing with some unusual Pokemon if you plan on using this in battle. You will need a Water Stone for it to fully evolve it into Poliwrath, which, once again, is kind of awkward because it's one of those Stone Evolution Pokemon. I will point out on one thing. Once it becomes a part fighting type, it becomes more of a physical offensive Pokemon rather than special offensive Pokemon. And while it still lives up to the bulk, it's sadly cut short because it gains more weaknesses because it becomes a part fighting type. More specifically, Psychic and Flying. And remember, Fairy does not exist in this game. So your options are varied. In fact, I would actually recommend that you catch a Poliwag and level up to a Poliwhirl, because there is something that we haven't talked on yet, but it might be something that maybe worth considering if you plan on getting another in-game trade that may be worth your time. And also, if your options are, do you want to have a water immunity or do you want to prevent explosions? Quite honestly, you can do well with almost any of these abilities, but I would probably say that Water Absorb would probably be a better option for Poliwag and its evolutions. Also because that it draws in and, well, it absorbs water type moves in it to become, well, immune to them. Yay. Finally, Goldeen and its evolution Seaking. Since I got the Super Rod from that, I clearly forgot to add this to my list, but honestly, who cares at this point? I'm here to talk about it, and it's gonna be great. These are very nice on the physical offensive Pokemon, but believe it or not, I want to get this out right here, right now. These are the lone Pokemon that, if I recall correctly, as at this point in the game, in the series, that they can naturally learn Waterfall through leveling up. Something that you don't see very often. Unfortunately, as much as I really like this, it's not gonna matter. Why? Because its special offensive stats suck. Yeah, as much as it really pains me to have to admit this, if you want to get good use of the Waterfall, you're not gonna get it here. I don't know why it's like this, but okay, yeah, I do know why. But to be honest, I feel like that this is a Pokemon that is great, but it once again is a generation too early when the physical special split stormed. All in all, if you're looking for some good physical offensive Pokemon, this one's great. In fact, packed through leveling up, Horn Attack by default, you can actually do worse with these. Just be aware that you are going to be dealing with some Pokemon that'll be decent for it to go up against it from then, but you're not going to get much good mileage out of it because the physical special split hasn't happened yet, and by the time when it does know Waterfall, it'll pack a serious punch. And of course, your options are, do you want to double your speed while in rain, or do you want to prevent yourself from getting burned and becoming fish sticks? Quite honestly, both of them are pretty nice. But if you want my utmost opinion, I think you're probably better off with Swift Swim. And even though that is pretty decent in terms of speed, you could do worse with this. You could do worse with this. Alright. We got a lot of exploring around Fuchsia City, and we'll definitely be covering the Safari Zone at a later time. But I will point out on one thing. This is one of things that are going to get interesting. Remember what I said from earlier, that you'll have some good opportunities of finding some better Pokemon than from earlier? Well, what's coming up in the Safari Zone? That'll be it. Alright. You'll go for another round or two. There we go. And this time I actually got myself prepared. Why would you do that? You're not even on low health yet, Seaking! Okay, you are a little bit faster than I am, but that's okay. No! I have to admit, that's pretty funny. Okay. I think now may be a good time for us to just stop it here. We'll definitely be covering more of Fuchsia City a little bit later. But I'm definitely going to do some catching up some Pokemon off screen. Oh, actually, hold on. I want to check one quick thing before we finish up from here. There's another entrance for us to go through, but I wanted to double check and recheck on that location. Don't worry. I won't have to make any excuses on prolonging this and longer than I should have. Like I've done it in past videos. But I actually have a legitimately good reason that I want to check this. Right over here. Is it in this one? I think? No. Okay, yeah, this is it. If you have a Golduck that's in FireRed, it will trade you this Pokemon. In LeafGreen, it will 100% be Slowbro, like I said from before. We're not going to talk about that quite yet. Alright, what is this? Pokemon Paradise. Okay. I guess it's just the manager building. But anyway, I'm all out of time here for this episode. So I'm just gonna go right over here. We'll just stop right in front of the Pokemon Center. And we'll call quits from here. So, next time on Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen, we explore Fuchsia City. Maybe take a little dip inside the Safari Zone. Because there is actually a couple of things that are back there that I would suggest and that you look a little bit more into. It's not just a Pokemon that we might potentially find in there, but something a little bit more wavy, if you will. See you guys then.